Hey, it's Monday. Oh my gosh, I have been waiting all weekend to say that. I know it sounds goofy, but I have been waiting to say it. Okay, that's what I think of it like midnight on a Saturday. Hey, it's Monday. Okay, so last Friday I asked the riddle of what has 3 feet and cannot walk. And I've been waiting to give you the answer. And it's a yardstick. It has 3 feet. It can't walk. A yardstick. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, I can't. All right. So Friday, I will give you another riddle. And I think I have it picked out. It's a little bit easier this time. I called my mom and I had her answer it and she got it. So we'll see if any of you get it too. Okay. So it is Motivational Monday, and I want to know what it is or who it is that inspires you to do your very best. So send me an email, or you can answer it on Class Dojo, or if you are your mama or daddy or whoever is friends with me on Facebook or can find me, they can send it through Messenger also. And yeah, that's what I got. Okay, so last week we read chapters 15 through 20, and we started learning about Rescuro, who is the rat from down in the cellar. And this rat is obsessed with the light. He wants to get up in the light. He wants to be out of the darkness, and how most of the rats thrive and live for being able to torture the prisoners that get sent down into the chamber or down into the cellar. They live for that. That's what their job is. That's what they think that life is all about. Rescuro is not like that. He wants to be in the light. He wants to see what it is. He is just drawn to it. He is obsessing over it. He has to see what it is up in the light. And he cannot think of anything else. So he finally gets up there, and when we left off Friday, he had found the banquet hall where the king and the queen and Princess P and this big party were, and he had, whoa, I'm sorry, almost knocked my table over. He had to be a part of it. He wanted to see what it was all about. And so he climbs up the table, nobody notices him, and then he gets onto the chandelier. And he's hanging on the bottom part of the chandelier, and he's swinging back and forth. And who do you think who was it that noticed him? It was Princess P. And she goes, "Rat, there's a rat." And Rescuro falls, and Rescuro falls into the queen's soup. And that is where we ended, was Rescuro falling into the queen's bowl of soup. Okay, so we are going to read chapter 21 through chapter 23 today. I know it's only 3 chapters, but that will leave us off at the end of book 2 and starting the 3rd part of the book. And I don't want to get stuff confused, so I'm just going to stop there today. So it'll be a little bit shorter, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to start with chapter 21, the Queen's Last Words. The Queen loved soup. She loved soup more than anything in the world, except for the Princess P and the King. And because the Queen loved it, soup was served in the castle for every banquet, every lunch, and every dinner. And what soup it was! Cook's love and admiration for the Queen and her plate moved the broth that she concocted from the level of mere food to a high art. And on this particular day, for this particular banquet, Cook had outdone herself. The soup was a masterwork, a delicate mingling of chicken, watercress, and garlic. Rescuro, as he surfaced from the bottom of the Queen's capacious bowl, could not help taking a few appreciative sips. "Lovely," he said, distracted for a moment through the misery of his existence. "Delightful." "See!" shouted the Pea. "See!" She stood and she pointed her finger right at Rescuro. "It's a rat! I told you it was a rat!" He was hanging from the chandelier, and now he's in moss soup. The musicians stopped playing their guitars. The jugglers stopped juggling. The noble people stopped eating. The queen looked at Rescuro. Rescuro looked at the queen. Reader, in the spirit of honesty, I must utter a difficult and unsavory truth. Rats are not beautiful creatures. They are not even cute. They are really rather nasty beasts, particularly if one happens to appear in your bowl of soup with pieces of watercress clinging to its whiskers. There was a long moment of silence, and then Rescuro said to the queen, I beg your pardon. In response, the queen flung her spoon in the air and made an incredible noise, a noise that was in no way worthy of a queen, a noise somewhere between the neigh of a horse and the squeal of a pig, and the sound of something like neek. And then the queen said, There's a rat in my soup. The queen was really a simple soul, and always, her whole life, had done nothing except state the overly obvious. And she died as she lived. There is a rat in my soup were the last words she uttered. She clutched her chest and fell over backward. Her royal chair hit the floor with a thump, and the banquet hall exploded. Spoons were dropped, chairs were flung back. Save her, thundered the king. You must save her. All the king's men ran to try and rescue the queen. Rescuro climbed out of the bowl of soup. He felt that under the circumstances, it would be best if he left. As he crawled across the tablecloth, he remembered the words of the prisoner in the dungeon, his regret that he did not look back at his daughter as he left her. And so Rescuro turned back. He looked back, and he saw that the princess was glaring at him. Her eyes were filled with disgust and anger. Go back to the dungeon, was what the look she gave him said. Go back to the darkness where you belong. This look, reader, broke Rescuro's heart. Did you think that rats did not have hearts? Wrong. All living things have a heart, and the heart of any living thing can be broken. If the rat had not looked over his shoulder, perhaps his heart would not have broken, and it is possible then that I would not have a story to tell. But, reader, he did look. Chapter 22. He put his heart together again. Rescuro hurried from the banquet hall. Rat, he said, and he put a paw over his heart. I am a rat, and there is no light for rats. There will be no light for me. The king's men were still bent over the queen. The king was still shouting, Save her, save her! And the queen was still dead, of course, when Rescuro encountered the queen's royal soup spoon lying on the floor. I will have something beautiful, he said aloud. I am a rat, but I will have something beautiful. I will have a crown of my own. He picked up the spoon and he put it on his head. And this is where he is saying, I will have something beautiful of my own. With that soup spoon on his head. Yes, said Rescuro, I will have something beautiful, and I will have revenge. Both things somehow. There are those hearts, reader, that never mend again once they are broken. Or if they do mend, they heal themselves in a crooked and lopsided way, as if sewn together by a careless craftsman. Such was the fate of Rescuro. His heart was broken. Picking up the spoon and placing it on his head, speaking of revenge, these things helped him to put his heart together again. But it was alas put together wrong. Where's the rat? Shouted the king. Find that rat. If you want me, muttered Rescuro as he left the banquet hall, I will be in the dungeon in the darkness. Chapter 23. Consequences. There were, of course, dire consequences of Rescuro's behavior. Every action, reader, no matter how small, has a consequence. For instance, the young Rescuro gnawed on Gregory, the jailer's rope, And because he gnawed on the rope, a match was lit in his face. And because a match was lit in his face, his soul was set afire. The rat's soul was set afire, and because of this he journeyed upstairs seeking the light. Upstairs in the banquet hall, the Princess Peace spotted him and called out the word, rat. And because of this, Rescuro fell into the queen's soup. And because the rat fell into the queen's soup, the queen died. You can see, can't you, how everything is related to everything else. You can see quite clearly how every action has a consequence. For instance, if, reader, you will indulge me and allow me to continue this meditation on consequences, because the queen died while eating soup, the heartbroken king outlawed soup. And because soup was outlawed, so were all of the instruments involved in the making and eating of soup. Spoons, bowls, and kettles. These things were collected from all of the people in the kingdom of Dor, and they were piled in the dungeon. And because Rescuro was dazzled by the light of one match and journeyed upstairs and fell into the queen's soup, and the queen died, the king ordered the death of every rat in the land. The king's men went bravely into the dungeon to kill the rats, but the thing about killing a rat is that you must find a rat. And if a rat does not want to be found, reader, he will not be found. The king's men succeeded only in getting lost in the dungeon's torturous mazes. Some of them, in fact, did not ever find their way out again and died there in the dark heart of the castle. And so the killing of all the rats was not successful, and in desperation, King Philip declared that rats were illegal, and he declared them outlaws. Thus, of course, was a ridiculous law, as rats are outlaws to begin with. How can you outlaw an outlaw? It is a waste of time and energy, but still, the king officially declared that all rats in the kingdom of Dor were outlaws and should be treated as such. And when you are a king, you may make as many ridiculous laws as you like. That is what being a king is all about. But, reader, we must not forget that King Philip loved the queen, and that without her, he was lost. That is the danger of loving. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how many kingdoms you rule, you cannot stop those you love from dying. Making soup illegal, outlawing rats, these things soothed the poor king's heart, and so we must forgive him. And what of the outlawed rats? What of one outlawed rat in particular? What of Chiaroscuro? In the darkness of the dungeon, he sat in his nest with his soup spoon atop his head. He sat to work fashioning for himself a kingly cape made out of a scrap of the red tablecloth. And as he worked, old one-eared Botticelli Rimorso sat next to him swinging his locket back and forth and back and forth, saying, "You see what comes from a rat going upstairs? I hope that you have learned your lesson. Your job in this world is to make others suffer." "Yes," muttered Rescuro. "Yes, that is exactly what I intend to do. I will make the princess suffer for how she looked at me." And as Rescuro worked and planned, the jailer, Gregory, held tight to his rope and made his own way through the darkness. And in a dank cell, the prisoner who had once had a red tablecloth now had nothing and spent his days and nights weeping quietly. High above the dungeon, upstairs in the castle, a small mouse stood alone one evening as his brothers and sisters sniffed for crumbs. He stood with his head cocked to one side, listening to a sweet sound he did not yet have a name for. There would be consequences of this mouse's love for music. You, reader, already know some of those consequences. Because of the music, the mouse would find his way to the princess, and he would fall in love. And speaking of consequences, the same evening that Despereaux stood inside the castle hearing music for the first time, outside the castle, in the gloom of dusk, more consequences drew near. A wagon, driven by a king's soldier and piled high with spoons and bowls and kettles, was making its way into the castle. And beside the soldier, there sat a young girl, with ears that looked like little pieces of cauliflower stuck on either side of her head. The girl's name, reader, was Megarissot, and though she did not yet know it, she would be instrumental in helping the rat work his revenge. And that is the end of the second book. So tomorrow we'll start book the 3rd, and it's called Gore, The Tale of Miggery So. All right, so let me know for your Motivational Monday who or what it is that motivates you to do the best you can in all that you do. And yeah, that's what I've got for you today. So I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Wash your hands. Be safe. Talk to you soon.